Good morning, everyone. This is Leilani Cawthon, the CEO and publisher at the Learning Council News Media and Research Organization, also an EduJedi Grandmaster and proud to be one. We're going to get started here today. So we want to thank all of our sponsors today. All of these companies got together and said, yeah, let's support doing an event there in the DC, Maryland, Virginia, and West Virginia area and get everybody invited. Let's all talk together. A couple of them you'll hear from today. We have either video showings or they get on the webinar live and they show their own slides and tell you what's going on. A lot of big change in the ed tech industry. It's really amazing what happened as quarantines came about. So again, we have with us today Heather Hurley, who's going to talk to us about Arlington Public Schools' journey to virtual learning. She's a personalized learning specialist there at Arlington Public Schools. And I'm going to have her share her screen now and her video, her webcam. I'm passing you the sharing screen now. I'm finding you and having you do that. Okay, so you're sharing, Heather. Glad to have you with us. Super excited about Arlington. We used to see you guys in person when we came out every year, and now everything's different. We don't get to see people physically. We have to do everything by webinar, but it's okay. So Heather, you're on. It looks like you're muted.
Here we go. Now I'm unmuted.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, good to have you.
Thank you. And I'll just on and say good morning, everyone. And I'm excited to be able to talk to you a little bit about what we've been doing in Arlington. So
good.
I'm just going to turn and go to my screen.
Yeah, the sharing button. There you go. We see it.
See it. All right. Excellent. So I'm going to just make this a little bit bigger so you don't see everything.
Yeah. Okay, so Heather, first tell us a little bit about yourself and yeah, then let's get in.
All right. So I am supervisor of personalized learning in Arlington Public Schools. I have been with Arlington Public Schools for 16 years. I am, a former elementary school teacher, technology coordinator, assistant principal, and I have been in this particular role this is year 5. It was a new position for Arlington, and I've been kind of making it my own, so to speak. Of Arlington, this time frame has been really interesting, as I'm sure it has been very interesting for all of you. We really have learned a lot about ourselves, about our system, about the processes we have in place, and et cetera. And it's been exciting. It's been frustrating to kind of pull all of this together and to make it work. So for us, we didn't actually start school until right after Labor Day. So we're really only about 2 weeks in to our actual instructional year. So let me just tell you a little bit about Arlington, just so that you can see here. We have about 29,000 students, pre-K through 12. We have 41 schools and programs. We are a pretty diverse county. We, as you can see, have 150 nations. We speak 114 different languages. We are lucky. We have you can see our median household income, and Arlington is right outside of DC, so we have a lot of government. We have a lot of military and such, just based on our location. So as we had started this journey, kind of thinking about where did we begin? So when we all went out from March to June, it really was about kind of that emergency planning. And so we looked at our phases as March until June, and then from June to August, and now September on through the rest of the year. So what you see there is our strategic plan goals. So ultimately, everything that we did went back to our student success and well-being, making sure that we had an engaged workforce, partnerships with our community, and then again, that operational excellence. And in the midst of all of this happening, we actually were in the middle of a new superintendent search. So our superintendent just got hired in June and kind of had to come in and hit the ground running. So the way that he did that was to begin in creating a task force, so a return to school task force. And this task force consisted of parents, teachers, several community members, advisory group members, and they were kind of the main core group. And then after that main core group, there were individual working groups. So there was an instruction working group, infrastructure technology working group, operations working group. And that was more made up of actual Arlington Public Schools representatives. And they all kind of did the work and then would report back to the task force, and the task force would send things back and forth. So it really was the way that we began to structure how this was going to look. Initially, we were planning for 2 scenarios, full distance and a hybrid of some sort. And really up until July, we were still working on those two scenarios. So you can imagine having working groups trying to come up with 2 separate instructional scenarios. During this time, we were having surveys going out to parents, to teachers, et cetera, asking about their preferences, in addition to if they are coming back, do they prefer the hybrid model? Do they prefer the virtual model? While all that work was going on, our superintendent was consistently looking at numbers, et cetera, and made the decision to actually start the school year all virtual and not hybrid. So we kind of switched our focus and went that full virtual distance learning, and that's where we are right now. So as we went through the creation of all of these plans and such, really what kind of bubbled up when I looked at it were these 4 areas: equity, access, consistency, and professional learning. That's really what all of what we did fell into. So when we talk about equity, the first piece is really, what do students need in order to be successful? That was kind of the first question. What is appropriate and manageable during a pandemic? And then taking that guidance from the state of Virginia. I have to say, I felt that the guidance that the state put forward was extremely helpful. It was very timely. It was very thoughtful. So when I was saying that March through June, which was really about kind of that emergency, like we have to be out, we need to make sure that kids are learning, et cetera, but being mindful at the same time that our teachers are also home with their own children. Parents are suddenly home. Some parents may be not having jobs that they may have lost, and or students that maybe are actually caregivers of their young children because their parents are still having to go out to work during this time. So with some guidance from the state, Arlington made the decision during that March to June to not do any synchronous instruction. It was all asynchronous, and we made the decision to not teach any new content for that 4th quarter. So what was done during that 4th quarter was allowing teachers to go deeper with existing content from the previous 3 quarters, and or allowing students to work on work that they may have missed. And we allowed students to be able to bring up their grade one level. So if you were a D, you had the opportunity to bring your grade up to a C, etc. And that decision was met with mixed results. Some were in favor of it, some were not. But when you think about that, the equity piece, thinking about students who don't have Wi-Fi, thinking about students, again, who don't have the guidance at home to maybe allow them to access some of the content in that synchronous instruction. That was really why that decision was made. And then we ended the school year in June and went into our planning, still keeping in mind that equity piece. So our second piece, again, was access. We are very lucky in Arlington in the fact that we were 1-to-1 in grades 3 through 12. In grades 3 through 8, all of our students have a iPad, and our 9th through 12th graders have a MacBook Air. So those students had those devices and brought them home immediately. Our grades K through 2 had shared devices, so they were more of a 2-to-1. So those were still sitting in the schools, and our pre-K students didn't have technology at all because our model didn't begin in pre-K. So as we were thinking about what's going to happen over the summer and in preparation for the new year, we had to make sure that all of our students had devices. So the way that we did that is we actually initially started with our special ed pre-K students and our students with the most needs. So our special ed students in pre-K through 2, moving into our English language learners in pre-K through 2, and got them devices out over the summer from our existing inventory that were still sitting there in the schools. Then we had to actually order additional devices for the rest of those pre-K through 2 students to ensure that all of our students had a device to be able to learn from this year. In order for students to also have access, we had always given students MiFis if they needed them, but what we quickly found out was that MiFis cannot handle a Teams video chat, especially if you have more than one child in a household and they're utilizing that one MiFi. So our district partnered with Arlington County government and received a grant to be able to pay for that Comcast Internet Essentials, which is the $9.95 program. So some folks already were using that, but this now allows families to be able to have Comcast Internet independent of the MiFi, and then they will not be charged. And this is I believe it is a 12-month program. And we started again with the ones that had the most and highest need. And now it is open to anyone that needs it. They can get a code from us and have this internet in the homes. And then if it turns out that there's a student or an issue of folks being displaced from homes and such, we still can provide them with MiFis. So that kind of took care of getting the device, getting access to the internet. Not that there are not still hiccups, because there are. The other piece was then simplifying the login process for our students. So we had a single sign-on, but we never actually used Clever. So now we've added the Clever login portal to allow for students to be able to kind of have one place to click and make it easier for them, make it a little easier for their parents or for any of the caregivers that may be helping them at home. And then technical help, because we have instructional technology coordinators in every school. This is one of our middle school technology coordinators here on the screen, and what you can see was our 6th graders, we got them keyboards. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough funds for all of middle school, but we got special keyboards for the 6th grade iPads, and this is one of our ITCs actually setting all of them up. I think that is about 300 or 600 iPads that he was setting up. But as you can imagine, normally if there's a tech issue, the kids are in school and the technology coordinator is right there to help. For now, there is not. So we put together there's now a tech help desk where parents can call in, and the folks there do what we call level 0 support. And a lot of the folks that are now manning that help desk are folks that are employed by Arlington Public Schools, but their jobs are not happening right now. So think of extended day folks, some transportation, bus drivers, food services. So we've kind of repurposed and done a little training to allow folks to be able to still work throughout this, even though their jobs are not currently happening in the normal capacity. And then we have lots of tutorials and such that parents can try to troubleshoot before submitting a tech help form that then gets cycled through to our instructional technology coordinators and then escalate it to the correct person in our information services. So those are the things that we put in to help in streamline the access to all of our resources. Then our other piece is consistency. So as we think about consistency, we had lots of schools and programs, and I think probably like other systems, a lot of folks are kind of doing their own thing. And as you know, when we have something like this, we do need to be consistent. So one of the things we had to be very consistent with was, of course, instruction and how instruction was going to run and the tools that we were going to be using. So some of those working groups put together distance learning guidelines, and that website that's there brings you right to our school year 2021, where you can see the different documents. So basically, what are the rules around synchronous instruction? What are the rules around asynchronous instruction? What are the platforms that we are using? We are a Microsoft Teams district. We're not using Zoom, with the exception of a few cases because there are some features of Zoom that they have to have. What are the rules around small group and monitoring students and work and homework and grading? So all of that was put together into these distance learning guidelines and shared with feedback from principals and teachers, et cetera, so that everyone is on the same page and parents know what the expectations are. Moving to a single learning management system. We have been using Canvas for 4 years, but there were not, again, consistent expectations that everyone had to use it. So for this school year, we said grades 6 through 12 had to use Canvas as the learning management system. And then elementary, because it still was so new for them, they had the choice of either sticking with what they were using and having to switch at the end of the school year, and or they could make the switch now. A good majority of them, I would say, made the switch right now. So in doing that, we also had to have specific requirements around using our Canvas platform. So Canvas is great as they provide you lots of resources, and one of them is a Canvas expectations that we took and then kind of made our own. All of this is so new for teachers because now we're actually using the learning management system to teach versus kind of as a receptacle for work. We wanted to make sure that teachers were familiar with Universal Design for Learning and the Quality Matters standards, which is really about standards for course design and standards on how to teach online. One of the big things that came up, which I'm sure maybe has happened in your districts, is the use of Bitmoji classrooms. We do have several visually impaired students as well as parents, and we had to let folks know that while Bitmoji classrooms are great, they cannot be your homepage because they're just not accessible. So if you're going to use them, feel free to use them as headers or graphics, but they couldn't be the main navigation for your course. So these particular requirements let teachers know what you must do, and then links to all the various guides, and then gives the rationale, and then also gives levels of if it's a beginner skill, an intermediate, and advanced. And we did that because we have had teachers that have been utilizing Canvas for a couple of years, and we wanted to make sure that there were things for them to be able to access and kind of take their teaching further. We also have done a lot of our LTI integrations, which means we've integrated a lot of our resources like Nearpod, BrainPop into Canvas to allow for more seamless teaching. So you can imagine, not only are teachers having to learn all these new tools, students are using all these new tools, well, parents now have to you learn and use all these new tools. So we have created the Parent Academy, and what this is videos that are just kind of giving overviews of tools. Right now they are kind of static videos. Eventually there's going to be some more live things, but overview of what special ed's going to look like, gifted services, Microsoft Teams, etc., so that we can continue to educate our parents on all of these new things that are happening. And then finally, all of this comes.
Hey, Heather. I just want to ask you a quick question on the, kind of what you're doing with Canvas.
Mhm.
Do you have an estimate of how much you had built in there by teachers before this all happened versus what had to happen afterwards in terms of build out of courses and all that?
I would say in terms of, I can't give you the exact numbers. I can say it by level. For the majority of our high schools, I would say that they were all using Canvas. Like there wasn't, it wasn't really a learning curve. It was maybe more that now their courses are a little bit more integrated in the sense of using some of those outside resources that we had that they weren't utilizing before. Middle school, I would say there definitely was a bump up. It was a good combination between Google Classroom and Canvas were the two, and it really was by school and not so like some schools were more Google Classroom and others were more Canvas, and that really kind of was at the direction of the leadership of
Mhm.
the. And then elementary, we also utilized Seesaw. So the majority of our elementary schools utilized Seesaw as kind of their platform, so to speak. So I would say probably the largest jump in terms of courses built out have been at the elementary level.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and that's what we're hearing from a lot of other districts that they started out maybe with like islands of sophistication in terms of how much resources were put in and sequenced as courses or plots of lessons. But then quarantines happened and it was like a mad scramble to try to complete their plot of lessons.
Yes, and what like some folks will like actually create complete, like History 1. Like we'll create the complete course, blueprint it, and send it out. We don't do that in Arlington, so we kind of give teachers the autonomy to build it themselves. So that's why we kind of use the requirements, because we at least want courses set up in a similar way. They don't have to be exactly the same, but the navigation should be cleaned up. A student should be able to look at a home page and know where to click for something. So we've not done that kind of curriculum, like creating the curriculum and then just giving it to the teachers. But the courses are created in the sense of in connection with the SIS, and then the teachers generally, once they have created their course, they export it at the end of the year, and then we import it the next year and clean up.
Okay. And then one other question, just a little interlude to, I'm giving you a break from talking for like the whole hour. What about the pacing guides? What were those digitized already? PDF documents floating around, or what happened with
Yes, those we
Okay.
already had. Yes, so
Okay.
we already had pacing guides and our curriculum guides. They were in Google. We did a lot of work over the last 3 years. Each year would be kind of a new group. So we would have curriculum writing at the end of the year for a whole week, and depending on whose turn it was. So we already had that done, and kind of what there was some adjustments made with the curriculum teams in the sense of like social studies, English language arts. The departments did some adjusting, but it was easier to do that adjusting because we already had them there. So it was just a matter of kind of compacting and saying, okay, well, these are the standards that we're going to do. We need to take, maybe some of the ones that should have been fourth quarter are they showing up somewhere else in terms of that kind of spiraling? Are they going to show up again? Is this one that we definitely need? If so, it needs to go. Let's put it here in first quarter. Does it need to be moved into second quarter, et cetera?
Okay, yeah. So because when things slide, like other governors have said, we're starting school here, and then we're waiting a week, and everybody has to do like this mad scramble. It's like a cascading change. You change the district's timeline, and then like the tertiary effect on all the teachers is like, oh my God, now the whole army has to move at once, and it's
That's
wild.
exactly true. And we actually made, for once, we always started after Labor Day. And for the first time, we were actually getting ready to start before Labor Day. And we actually had to go back to the school board and change the calendar and ask them to push school. And really it was that's kind of getting on this last slide here, was to get at allowing teachers more time for the collaborative planning, to look at those curriculum documents, the pacing guides, to kind of do some more webinars and such around distance learning tools and strategies. So normally we would have a week in service, pre-service week. We ended up having 2 weeks of pre-service this year to allow for that. Luckily, we made that decision to push it back early enough that we made that decision before pre-service, so folks were ready and knew what needed to be done.
That's good. Well, yeah. This is our finding almost everywhere in the country, that the teacher planning time needed to be longer, but you also had to have in your teaching plan some support emotionally for the teachers. Like that was the first thing, like a healing moment, we know you're all frazzled and freaked out right now.
And we did a bit of that in June. So we ended school a week early for our students. Again, another calendar change. We ended school a week early and actually gave that last week to the teachers to even start preparing for what the next year could possibly look like. And again, giving a little bit of that breathing room, because remembering, our teachers are done. The last day of school is the last day of our teachers. They don't have days afterwards. They only have days before school starts. So knowing that we needed to give teachers some time to kind of reflect on what had just happened and to kind of wrap their heads around what could possibly be happening in the fall. And if we didn't give them that week to do some professional learning, to kind of just talk with their teams, with their schools, that it would have made for a much more stressful summer. Now, I can't say that even though we gave them that week, the summer, I'm sure, was still just as stressful as were the first 2 weeks of pre-service. But I think just kind of allowing teachers that time to be able to do that, I think was helpful. And same with having the 2 weeks. It was a mix of kind of things being done within the schools, things being done from us central office, that social emotional support, trauma informed practices. That was the only requirement that teachers had during the last week in June, is that they had to do a trauma informed course that our student services department created, just to kind of have them wrap their minds around stuff for themselves, but as well as what their students may be facing in their homes and when we finally arrive back into the schools.
I'm so glad to hear that. That's wonderful. Okay, so just one more interjected question, and then you could carry on. Joseph Fang, I hope I say your name right. Joseph Fankibi, do you want to ask your question? Yes, go ahead.
Oh, I typed it in the chat box. I wanted to know if Canvas is capable of accommodating all the numerous students, because sometimes some of these programs, when you migrate a lot of students onto them, it just crashes. And so is Canvas ready for that?
Oh, yes, Canvas has it's something like, I would have to look it up, but it's something like 98.999 or 99.1 like uprate. They don't, we've never had a Canvas failure. And I mean, they are a learning management system, so they are designed to handle lots of students. So we, at any given time, have had up to, like, say 25,000 students in Canvas, and we have not had Canvas crash on us at all. We've had other technical issues, but Canvas has not been one of them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Joseph, you're from North Carolina, right?
Yes, we just started using it, and that's why I'm asking that.
Okay.
Yes.
Because the problems we run into most of the time is when teachers actually log in, they find it difficult to open the links. For instance, if they create assessments for the students, they find it difficult sometimes to access the assessments. And so we're just trying to go around all those little hicks.
Right. And my email will be at the end of this, so feel free to email me and I can kind of give you what insights I have and can ask you a couple more questions that we don't necessarily have time for here.
Okay.
But because the quizzes feature of Canvas is probably is a great feature, so it could just be some minor tweaks that need to happen.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
More than welcome.
Thank you, Joseph.
Yes, another question?
No, go ahead. I'm going to mute myself again. Sorry about that. I just keep asking questions. Go ahead.
The final slide really is just around that professional learning and just being sure that we were very conscious of not adding a lot of new tools. And I don't know about you, but technology companies and such came out of the woodwork. You can have this free for a year. You can have this free. And we in Arlington said we are not adding anything new. I mean, we already had all of these tools, and one, we don't like to give someone something new that they get used to using, they love, and then we don't have the budget to buy it the next time. So we generally don't do those kind of free offers, and we wanted folks to use the resources that we had. But if anything, a silver lining to all of this is that folks are really realizing what we do have and how great these tools are. Things like, we've had Discovery Education for years. We've had it before it was Discovery Education, when it was United Streaming. But we don't allow access to YouTube for our elementary and middle school. Discovery has fantastic videos that can be embedded or linked into Canvas. We have Nearpod, we have BrainPop, we have Seesaw, not to mention all the various apps that we have, Reading A to Z, and I'm blanking on our Mac, Dreambox. All of these just different tools that not everyone was utilizing to its fullest potential, and now they are. So I have to say that is probably a silver lining, as well as teachers kind of offering their own professional learning to other teachers, saying, this is how I engage students with learning. It's not just about the tool. This is how I'm engaging. This is how I'm getting student discourse. This is how I'm getting collaboration, and allowing teachers to learn from one another has been another plus to all of that. So that's really all I have. I would say what's happening now in terms of our next steps is that we are now thinking about what is happening, what's the next step in terms of phasing students in, and it's looking like we're looking at our neediest students first. So the students that maybe require a one-on-one assistant, a nurse, someone that really needs someone with them to actually access instruction. So they may be the first that are brought back into the building. It wouldn't be direct teaching in the building, but it would be that person there to access to help them get to the virtual learning. And then looking again at our specialized populations, our youngest special ed students, our English learners, and how are we going to kind of move those folks back into schools and eventually all students. So now there's a new working group that's looking at how we're going to do it. Are we going to stick with that hybrid AB? Are we just going to do it by those grade bands, et cetera? So that's the step that we're at right now, and we'll see where we end up. So again, the bit.ly, if you wanted this presentation, is there. I have my Twitter as well as the Personalized Learning Office Twitter and my emails, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you didn't get answered today. Feel free to email me.
This is awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. Now, a question for you. Do we have you for a little while longer so we can ask you a bunch of questions and discuss things with you?
Yep,
Are you there?
Yeah, not a problem.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, good. So the model, how it's working in virtual in terms of your schedule, we've had teachers in other districts scheduling Zoom meetings over the top of each other, and it's been kind of crazy. And, kindergartners 5 hours in front of a screen. It's like, no, not working for the parents. So I want to come back to that. We're finding nationally that this is one of the biggest conundrums. It's all coming down to logistics. How are you doing synchronous versus asynchronous in the blend, or are you doing big block schedules, and what does it all look like? I'm going to be speaking about this later, what we've done as a national survey to see all the different models that are out there. It's kind of wild. How are things going for you, Heather, in that vein, like the actual schedule and the AB of it all?
And so when we started all of this and we needed parents to choose whether they wanted virtual or hybrid, at that time, the big thing is I can't choose until I know what does hybrid look like, what does virtual look like, what is the schedule. So we actually did put together that schedule. And so we do have that. We have a typical it's a 5-hour 20-minute day schedule, which is the for the schools. And the way that our schedule goes is Mondays is asynchronous for students. So there actually is no direct teaching on Monday. It is really meant for teacher planning, because the day is kind of, you don't have that typical special where every teacher gets the planning block throughout the day. So Mondays are the teacher planning day. And also it may be a time where they could meet with small groups of students, et cetera, if they want to. But we actually did break down our schedules to, like, some of them to the minute. Now they're not following it exactly to the minute, but essentially giving parents knowing that. So the first thing, they're always going to start with a morning message. Then and for like K2, they're going into phonemic awareness, reading instruction, independent work sessions. So generally where you see the independent work sessions are students doing off computer type work, and or they are not getting direct instruction from the teacher, but maybe they went into Seesaw to get work that they need to do. We incorporated movement breaks within, and then our specials are at the end of the day when, so that's where our art, music, PE, and such are. The first month we put on, in that link that I gave folks that goes to that school year 2020, we did tell parents kind of what to expect that first month back, because that first month back really is about getting students used to it, moving through the different areas of Canvas and or whatever learning platform they may be using and such. So for right now, I would say there probably is a lot more on computer than off, if that makes sense, because they're trying to get kids used to all of the routines and maybe a little bit more teacher discourse than student discourse. And part of that stems also from trying to get our video platform, which is Microsoft Teams, to kind of do what we need it to do. And that means things like breakout groups and between channels. And is it a channel? Is it a separate meeting link? Is it all of those pieces? We are still figuring out, because Microsoft keeps giving updates for the things that schools are saying that they want. So, but that means every time there's an update, we then have to change it or give new sets of directions. So I would say, it only being the second week of school, I haven't heard I have not heard and or seen like in our various messages, Facebook groups, that kind of thing. Parents saying like they're on the computers too much, or I haven't seen that yet. Again, we give the schedules as guidance, and then the schools kind of take it and massage it. But where we were pretty firm was between the difference between that synchronous and asynchronous, because of the fact that not all students may be able to join at the time that you say that they're able to join. And if you are going to record, the parameters around recording instruction, in terms of student privacy and such, that's another thing that really has come up through all of this. Like, you can't just have the camera on and show your entire, show the entire class, because that's a violation of student privacy, et cetera.
Yeah, I've heard something similar from Florida. Florida doesn't allow cameras in the home, which makes discipline online and seeing if the kid's paying attention a totally different world. So many, things that we have to worry about now. We have another. What's that?
I was just gonna say, and the fact that like teaching kids like the tools in terms of if you to blur a background or how to put a different background, because we have homeless students, so they may be in a shelter. They may be in a home situation that they don't want their classmates to see. So just being mindful of that also.
Yeah, that's a huge issue. Little brother running across the background, fresh out of the shower. It's like, lots of things have occurred since it's all started. So we have another question here from Marianne Moore. Marianne, I'm finding you to unmute you so you can ask your question. Go ahead, Marianne.
Yeah, I was just wondering how you found closed captions working, especially with Canvas. Or do you have to hire captioners for every session?
Well, with Teams, you can, there is a captioning on Teams, so if you're speaking, will self-cap. But anything that is outside of that has to be captioned. That makes sense. So our instruction, our video instruction is not happening through Canvas, it's happening through Teams. So like Canvas has the big blue button video chatting feature, but we didn't purchase that. When we got Canvas, we didn't buy the upgraded. So we quickly learned that it could not handle the free version couldn't handle the level that we would need it to. So that's why we switched over to Teams, and that can be captioned.
Okay, thank you. I had to mute Marianne because her mic was giving a lot of reverb feedback. I'm going to unmute you briefly, Marianne. If you want to ask anything else? There you go.
Yeah, so what I'm asking, I guess, is if you haven't found one connected to the program, then you're hiring somebody to do the closed captions?
We have not hired, I personally aren't aware of us for teachers within the schools. I know we have an outside source for any of our things that are on our websites and such that need captioning. That is an outside company that does all of that.
So you're hiring someone to do closed caption if you have a student in that class who requires it. Yes?
Well, it depends on what they're using. So if we're using Microsoft Teams, it can turn on the closed captioning, and it will.
Okay.
If it's like a discovery video, etc., Discovery allows you, has closed caption. Other things within there wouldn't necessarily be closed caption, etc.
Okay.
Okay. Marianne, you want to introduce yourself? I think your email is your DOE, right?
Yeah. That's Virginia DOE.
Okay. Okay,
not
great.
federal DOE.
Yeah. Good. Well, nice having you. I'm going to mute you. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
All
That's
right,
okay.
thank you. Okay, so yeah, so the question with regards to what you see going forward is really our last question, and you had already talked a little bit about sort of circling the wagons already. From the Learning Council research perspective, we're hearing a lot of discussion about the delineation of personalized pathways because there's been such a heavy loss of students in so many districts. You know, we know from talking to Dallas the other day, they lost 13,000. Some of the districts, the larger ones, have upwards of 40,000 that are AWOL, or they're just not coming back. So there's a discussion now about how you sort of ramp up from where you've been to providing fully personalized pathways, which is a logistics issue, 100%, to move to how do you synchronize the kids who are off campus with the ones who are on campus, with, you know, the blending and hybridizing of everything, and then also give kids a personalized pathway that may or may not actually be in sync with the old whole group way of learning. So what are your thoughts on sort of like going forward?
Well, I know what I would like to see happen going forward as supervisor of personalized learning. The biggest issue, well, one, it's not even the biggest. There's several different issues as we're starting to look at what does this look like, because we will still have students that have chosen to stay distance even once we are back in whatever form that is. If it's the hybrid AP, if it's everyone's back, but there's still a distance learning strand. And I think we have been lucky in the sense of having counselors and liaisons and stuff that if a student wasn't showing up, like they were contacting, they were finding out like what was happening and why were these students not showing up. But in terms of the first issue is once we decide on the model, the staffing. Do we have enough teachers and staff to support the various models? And once we know what that model is and how many staff, what does that model kind of look like? Do we have to adjust that AB? Will there need to be more kind of independent, personalized thinking of things like PBLs and such, where students can kind of take those concepts, take our standards, but then kind of be allowed to move at their own pace through some of these things. So, and then as what I've tried to do in terms of implementing personalized learning is hard. It's effective, it's wonderful, but it really is a complete shift in how you teach. And the way that I have been doing it in Arlington is I've had like year-long cohorts where I've taken teachers through to be able to understand what personalized learning is and to experiment and to do these things in their classrooms. It's not in that, so that's like a year of professional learning to get them comfortable with making these changes. I don't know how you, personally, I don't know quite how you do that with everything that is happening. I think, so for me, it's thinking what aspects of personalized learning can we put in with appropriate professional learning, but also make it effective and not make it you just go do what you want to do and kind of check in with me when you need some help. So I think that's the dilemma, is that it's not easy to do. It's great, but you do need professional learning on how to do it, and it's not something that you can I feel just turn around and kind of just do in a week. If you think about those stages of personalized learning, you have that kind of teacher, it's just teacher to teacher, teacher to student, then like kind of student actively going. We need to kind of fall somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. The blend between what has been whole grouping, right? Like And then the mild tweaking, which has been the personalization definition so far, right? To a autonomous, you're on your own path, and maybe you're in a cohort, but you're 2 grades ahead in math, but you're behind in language. This would be the Wild West of trying to run logistics. So there is talk now of how that can all work together. I'm going to talk about that in about an hour, about where where algorithms are coming into play to Uberize learning. Put you on the right exact intersection at the right moment, and save the teacher intersection point where there may need to be some lectures on the learning plot, and there may need to be some coming togetherness still, of course, because otherwise we're still in the bifurcated world of you're the online kid or you're the in-class kid. So where's the middle ground? So a lot of discussion about that. There's a lot of new innovation coming out of the industry to address this particular thing, because you have to save the humanity part. That's what teachers want to do, right? That's why we have them. Otherwise, everything would be like on a machine forever and ever and ever, So that I understand where you're coming from, because I think you see that. I think you see there's something in the middle. Where is it? What is it?
And still getting people to understand what it is. But the fact that terms like personalized learning, and I've always been very clear that technology is not personalized learning. Technology can help you with personalized learning, but you can't personalize learning without technology. So I've been very kind of clear about trying to separate the two, in the sense of one is not the other. But what this has done is it has started to bring these terms back up again. And people are like, well, what is it? Oh, well, that might be a way for me to do, if I have to teach, because in some places, some teachers may be doing their in person and doing distance. Like, we don't know what that's going to look like for us quite yet. That's what they're planning. It all depends on staffing and such. But being able to utilize these personalized learning strategies can really help teachers manage what could be a difficult situation. And at the same time, have students having buy-in, having choice, and kind of being excited to be learning because it's personalized to them.
Yeah, and our last panel for North Texas this last week had 3 different districts on it. One still fully virtual like you are, one fully back on campus, but still having to service some remote students, which is sort of, this still bifurcated highway. Those kids over there are online, and everybody else is normal, right? And then one who is having to run the ball down the middle. And it's the down the middle confusion that it's wiping teachers out. That's the thing where most districts are today. And so that's what I'm going to have to, talk more about later on today. Well, you know what? It's been completely delightful to have you with us today. You're amazing and wonderful. And I could give you tons more accolades, but I don't want to make you blush. But so great to have you, and they're lucky to have you there, and I'm very proud of you, and you have let all your cohorts over there and your coworkers know we're proud of you guys. So keep up the good work. Hopefully you've also entered into our national survey. We're going to be giving out awards at the end of the year for people who are doing groovy things, and I think you're doing them. So I'm just saying, you got to take the survey. It's a long survey. It's kind of arduous, but you learn from the survey too by the nature of the questions. But nice to have you. I'm double checking any other questions. I don't see any other questions in here. So I'm gonna release you back into the wild unless you want to stay on. You can just put us, like I said, on mute and come back when you will. But thank you, Heather, so much for being with us.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay.
Deployment, protection, service, end of life. Welcome to Stay Mobile's best-in-class solutions for educational organizations of all sizes. In order to keep your students connected throughout the pandemic, your district is likely tasked with managing an entire fleet of laptops to support your one-to-one technology requirements. And while your district's technology needs might be growing, it's likely that your support staff is not. That means you're underprepared to get hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of devices from the boxes in which they shipped, configured, and into the hands of your students. That's where we come in. Stay Mobile provides the services and solutions that remove or minimize almost every hurdle you'll face, and we do so in ways consistent with CDC guidelines in order to keep you, your team, and your students safe. We begin by looking at the entire device timeline, from purchase to deployment to usage to retirement, each and every step of the process. We then create a tailored solution set designed to alleviate every headache you might face along that continuum. First, we unpack your devices and dispose of the mountain of packaging refuse in green-friendly ways. We then boot up the device, install and configure the software to your specifications, and enroll it into your system. We then apply asset tags, install the high-quality protective case, and deliver it to your location fully charged and in slotted boxes. Next, we offer damage protection, extended OEM service, and a battery and power replacement program with Stay Mobile Protect, our industry-leading protection and service program, available with and without a protective case. We also provide standalone service solutions that repair, refresh, or facilitate the OEM warranty of your devices. And here's where we get to show off our national service network. Depending upon your location, we can organize pickup and drop-off services or prepaid shipping to and from one of our growing number of Stay Mobile technology centers. Finally, we can either establish a buyback program that turns your obsolete devices into cash, or we can recycle them for you. And all of these solutions can be configured to meet your specific needs. This approach allows you to effectively and efficiently outsource your device management needs to Stay Mobile, empowering you to reach and exceed your technology goals in measurable, manageable ways. For more information, please contact your regional Stay Mobile sales rep, Kostas Hatzakoudelis, at kostas.sales@staymobile.com, 800-778-2035. Stay Mobile, your devices, our solutions.